Welcome, everybody, to another episode. I was going to say penultimate, but just because I like the word, it sounds kind of fun. But it's
Should be a
always a
heavy metal band.
I guess if we were, penultimate episode, if we're always planning for this to be the second to last episode, then it's penultimate.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, I always thought penultimate meant like the top of it, but then
I did. That's what I thought it
but
meant
it's
too until
yeah,
this very moment.
no, it means the one before the last one. Is what it
Oh,
means, yeah. So,
so this is not the penultimate. See, this
but
is
this
going to
is
come
not.
very into our episode today of using terminology that we actually
Words,
don't understand.
terminology, yeah. Isn't it just semantics? That's what favorite thing people say. Welcome everybody to Voices from the Desert.
Oh,
Woo!
oh, oh, oh.
Any puppies jumping up?
Yep. I got some sheepdog looks on that one. Yep. No, they
Okay,
laid back
right.
down again.
How many are
Enough
there with
to
you in the house?
3. They're
Okay.
all sleeping, which is nice.
How many are
But they
outside?
are one sheepdog and
One dog sheep.
one dog sheep. Yeah, one sheepdog. I got some dog sheeps. Sheeps, I think they're dogs too. Lots of them. They like dog cookies and potato chips
Oh,
very
right,
much.
right.
You never. You know
Right.
the thing about a dog and a sheep. The big difference.
What's
You
that?
give a dog bone, they thank you. You give a sheep a dog bone, they attack you because in their head it's like you got a bag of this in there. I know you got a whole bag.
Right,
I'm coming
right,
for the
right.
bag.
Yeah. There
You're
you
holding
go.
out,
Yeah.
and then they go crazy because you give them one. It's like
Right.
they don't
Right.
thank you. They go complete zombie apocalypse.
Sure.
So that's the difference between a sheepdog and a dog sheep
Yeah.
right there.
I like that. I guess, getting into semantics and definitions kind of
Yeah,
sets
that's
up
what we're
our
doing today. That we've done it twice already, and we haven't even got to where
I
we're talking
know. We
about.
don't even
So,
no one even knows what we have docked up yet.
oh, everybody, I hope this will be an interesting episode for you. But I think it's very important because we're going to talk about belief systems, not just belief systems in our head, but
Yeah.
belief systems culturally, religiously. Um, and the reason we're going to talk about this, I had a friend send me a message the other day.
But
In a
first,
oh
join our Patreon.
Oh, yes.
We have a
Yeah, you'll get
Patreon.
more. Like,
You
that's
get
probably where this
more.
will be posted.
You get more. You can ask questions. You can criticize us. You can attack us.
Especially Josh.
I don't tell Murray about those kind of posts that are on there, the ones that criticizes theology and say,
Oh,
heretic.
boy.
Yeah.
Yes. Heretic.
Yeah,
Oh,
but join our
boy.
Patreon. We love engaging with the audience. It's a way to support Murray and I. And
Thank you, everybody.
you gain access to some additional conversations, that kind of stuff. So you can find more information about that in the link in the episode description.
Oh,
So
very
there
nice.
you go. So
Very
you
good.
were sent a message.
Yes. By somebody who is on our Patreon, actually, if I remember correctly.
Okay, right.
And they are doing a course on healing of the soul, emotions. And in this book that she's reading, Christian psychology book, they talked about the formation of belief from Plato through Aristotle, the Stoics, and then how this belief influenced the Desert Fathers. And I took umbrage with that, and because, well, you'll see, and I guess one of the reasons that triggers me, everybody. So I'm going to need to go get some emotional healing from the very person I'm talking about after, because this has triggered me. So, it's interesting with church culture. I had to take a course back in Bible school called Anabaptist Thought, because Mennonites are Anabaptists. And we called it Anabaptist rot, which was really bad. And I have a little bit more appreciation for it now, of course, but it's basically straight indoctrination. And which, we are all kind of that way. And, if you go back to episode 1 of
It's only indoctrination if you eventually disagree with it.
Yes.
Otherwise, then it's just teaching someone to think.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
It's all in the eye of the beholder, right?
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So for me, going from, Mennonite brethren, God bless them.
The left's indoctrinating our children.
Yes.
No, we're just teaching them sexuality and how to think. It's like, it depends on how you talk about it,
That's right. It depends on how you talk about it. So,
Anyway,
Oh,
sorry. I'm
man,
just
oh, no, it's good. I
we may just have a whole new episode that we
right
haven't even
there,
thought
you
about
just
right
put the
there. Yeah,
ball
yeah.
on the tee, and then somebody pulled out a shotgun, and I
Okay.
can hear the gun click.
Plato,
So,
Desert Fathers,
yeah.
Stoicism. Yes.
So, I was taught that, basically the church, you have the Bible, and then maybe you have the first century after that of Clement and that group, that are still fairly normal, theologically sound people. But after that, it's all heretical, all the way up to Luther, and to the point they, put a lot of fear in you. And mainly because
Sure.
of the accusation that Desert Fathers were rationalist Stoics who hated the body. And, that's why they fast. They hate the body. They have to, isn't that what they're doing? Like, and it really put a lot of fear in me in regards, looking before Luther for a long time
Right.
until, burned out and crashed really, really hard and realized a performance driven Western culture Christianity just based on the left side of my brain intellectualism is not getting the job done.
Right.
And I discovered for myself the Desert Fathers and the transformation of the soul and the passions and becoming Christ-like
Right.
through, these passions are in there. So when I hear criticism now that is not based on any form of reality but pet doctrine, I get a little triggered because, of course, my
Right.
own journey out of pet doctrine has been costly. So
Right.
wanted to talk, Josh and I were talking and we're like, we should really talk about this because I'm not the only one, I'm absolutely sure, that has misconceptions of early church theology. Two, how did the early church get formed by Greek thought? Because John in John 1, when he's talking about the logos, he is pulling in Greek thought right off the bat in
Right.
description of Christ intentionally. So it's intentionally done. And how do we view scripture, the Bible, the Desert Fathers, inner transformation today, when all this Greek thought is kicking around in Western culture, and
Yeah.
often we don't even know it. So
Oh, yeah, that's very
there you
true.
go. We're going to dig
Yeah.
into some of these thoughts here. Um,
Yeah,
Over to you, Josh.
the question was essentially, you know, the question that got us thinking was Plato, dualistic interpretation of creation, and the Stoics flowing from that, and then the Desert Fathers are influenced by the Stoics, and so we have to be a little cautious when we read that. That was kind of do we
Yeah.
think were the Desert Fathers influenced by Platonism and Stoicism? That's kind of the question, right?
Yeah.
And
And I
and
kind
it
of just filled out where does that all go in modern thinking, culture, religion,
yeah, yeah, that's
scripture
right.
reading, right? It has
And
ramifications.
so Murray and I got on the recording together before we started recording, and Murray goes, I gotta ask you this question.
Yeah.
What did you say? I have two questions for you. The first was inconsequential because it was about podcast statistics,
Yes.
and the second was about, and we just started
Was about
chatting. It was,
this.
oh, let's just record an episode about it. And
Yeah,
and the
because
and the precursor to that, by the way, is we're kind of doing this off the cuff. We've done some studying and research in the past, but you're more than welcome to fact check us because some of what we'll be saying is a bit off the cuff, and
yeah,
I I
a
I
little
believe
rusty, a
it's
little
well
rusty.
informed, but if we were going to sit down and do a whole series on this, we would have pulled up everything we could and then
So in
refreshed
other words,
ourselves. But
everybody, if you have questions about this or you want to talk to us
yeah,
about this, please message us and we'll dive deeper. And Josh is like a plethora of information here. It's unbelievable actually that he's done a lot of study on this. So I think we've come to the right place, Mr. Josh Albert. So
and it's I don't if I miss if I get any kind of quotes or names wrong, I think
hmm,
the overall gist that we're going to be talking about is um stands true still. So the first thing to talk about, I guess, is uh the role of Plato, or what do we think about when we think about Plato, right?
hmm.
And you've got the three
Yeah, you don't
main.
mean the rubbery gooey compound that you make
No, I
Gumby out
don't.
of.
Yeah, I remember when I was young, we would make it out of peanut butter and you could eat it. That was wonderful.
Oh,
What's the point of Play-Doh though? If you're gonna just eat it, you just might as well
yeah.
make something else. So maybe it was just because kids ate Play-Doh, and so they're like, well, let's make it easier. Let's make it
Oh,
more digestible. So,
it's a California
um,
thing.
yeah, we've definitely had the dog eat stuff like that before, and it comes out looking like it did going in.
Yeah,
So,
I've
yeah.
experienced this. Not personally, but
Yeah,
observing.
thank you for
Just
clarifying
yeah,
that. Yeah,
just,
that's just yeah.
that's how belief systems form right there,
Yeah,
everybody.
that is exactly how they form. That's right.
Thus,
Oh,
the Coptic and the
Murray,
Orthodox Church and their
Murray's been eating some
misunderstanding.
Play-Doh, I guess. So,
Ah,
Plato, Plato,
yes,
right?
everyone wordplay, sorry,
Yeah.
prophetic guy,
So
wordplay.
you've got Plato's the first of the main three Greek philosophers, right? You've got Plato, Socrates, and Aristotle.
Aristotle,
And
yeah.
if I recall correctly, I think the only stuff we know about Plato is from Socrates.
Oh, what about
Like
his book, The Republic? Is that not him, or is that recorded by one of his students?
I think it's recorded by the student.
Ah,
I could be wrong. I could have mixed the two of them up. Um, did Plato write anything? I think what Plato uh was written by Socrates. Um, so
you're probably right. I'm sure somebody out there will send
or
us
no, it
a
was
footnote on that.
Socrates. Maybe it was Socrates that didn't write anything and Plato that systematized everything. I think that's what it is actually.
Got
Anyway,
it.
um, so Plato and then Aristotle was Plato's disciple, I think.
Yeah,
So
I
Socrates
believe
didn't
this is
write
true.
anything. Plato wrote everything, but what he was writing was what he learned from Socrates, something like that. Anyway, so Plato, we're talking 400s in BC, right?
Yeah,
So 400 years before Jesus. Really the foundation of Greek philosophy between those three, Plato, Socrates, and so Plato systematized. I think it's that Plato systematized Socrates' philosophy,
mm,
and then Stoicism kind of builds off of that. And the essential foundation is you could probably characterize if we're going to do it simply, and there's lots of it. Like Plato has theories of knowledge, how we learn things, all that stuff, right? And I think there's four main avenues for learning knowledge, and love is one of them. Prophecy
oh,
is another one, like spiritual
really? Mm,
intuition. Yeah, I think there's four main avenues for the way we acquire knowledge. So he had a lot to say, right? Um, but the framework
no,
is between the ideas and the forms. Those are the technical terms that Plato uses. So he separates creation into those two categories, ideas and forms. So ideas is essentially the form of categories, or the it's a category. It's not like a thought. It's
yeah,
it's above the thought. So if you look at I have a desk in front of me, right? So the desk takes its form from the idea that it represents. Okay, so the idea is what permeates all of how creation expresses itself. So we've got the idea and the form. The desk is the form, the concept of a desk is the idea, and the idea always stands above what the form actually is. So the desk can look like any kind of desk, right? Murray's got a desk, I've got a table here, a desk here, right? The desk takes many different forms, but the concept of a desk, the idea of a desk, is what determines the fact that it is a desk. So Plato separate that's where we get the term we a docetic
docetic.
philosophy, I think, right,
Got it.
is the term. So it's dualistic. It's got the matter is one thing, but the idea that governs the matter is the other thing. So to Plato, the idea realm is divine. This is God. This is the realm that's above all other realms.
Yeah,
And the form is the matter and substance that's taken. And so, when it comes to like Gnostic heresies or Gnosticism in general, it takes the framework of ideas and forms and then superimposes um divine divine beings in a
mm,
hierarchy of how do the ideas transpose themselves into the forms, right? Then you have the demiurges and all this that take
got
the
it.
take the ideas and then speak them down and
So
create and
that's
all this
the
stuff.
emanation. They talk about the
There'd be
emanation.
emanations, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, that's what you would get, not so much from Plato, but from the Gnostics that took that theory of how the universe is constructed and then kind of tried to explain it with mystical religious thought
Got it.
processes, right?
So everyone, the big one on that, I'll just throw it out because I was thinking about it later. Because eventually this will come up about the physicality of the human body. Because Gnosticism would say mankind is dirty. The physical body is dirty. So in their thinking, there was a God and he created this emanation, which created an emanation, which created an emanation, like these
Right.
deiforms.
So based
And
off Platonic philosophy, but
yeah,
Plato wouldn't have
yeah,
thought
Plato wouldn't have
necessarily
thought
like
that.
that.
And
Yeah.
the last one created mankind, and it had to because it's so far away from God, because God is so pure and humankind is so dirty physically
Yeah.
that that's kind of a very Gnostic form. Even the Desert Fathers get
Yeah.
accused of this a little bit, which we'll get to that. But of course, it's
Yeah.
not true in that
In
regard.
a way, Plato as a philosopher was monotheistic.
Hmm,
He wasn't, I don't think he was so much concerned. Now I can't say I'm a
100%
like a
right on
Plato
that.
scholar, right? But I don't think he had a pantheon of gods. A lot of the philosophers didn't. The religious representations in Greek and Roman, the Greek and Roman religions, Zeus uh uh that's the Greek one, and then the Roman one is not Mars. Who's the Roman one?
Oh,
Um
Jupiter,
yeah, maybe it's Jupiter. It might be,
I
yeah.
think. I think,
Um
yeah, Zeus and
there's
Jupiter are the same.
there's superimposed between the two. It's almost a one for one identical. So those are like a popularization of the mythos,
Hmm,
right? That's the kind of the but that wasn't related to a philosophical system. But with that said, it's because the Platonic philosophy permeated most of Greek and Roman culture.
society, right? Yeah.
The way that they conceptualized the gods was very much influenced by that,
Hmm,
right? So you've got gods who are disinterested in humanity, and they really represent the worst parts of the human vices, right? You've got in the Roman pantheon, you've got Mars, right, the god of war, who represents
yeah.
anger and power and control, right? And they essentially embody the worst of that.
Hmm,
So, or Aphrodite, the goddess of sexuality and beauty and lust, right? All of the gods embody the worst aspects of what we would characterize from an early church perspective, the worst parts
hmm.
of the passions or the sinful
Yes.
urges within humanity, right? So, and it's funny, if you think about it, every one of the gods, pretty much in Greek or Roman, um, the Greek or Roman religion, you could probably relate to a human bio chemical response, in the sense of fear, anxiety, anger, lust, desire for power. Every one of these is a chemical reaction within us, right? On some
Interesting.
level, right?
So very
Love.
much like very much like Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, that's right.
So Tigger's happiness, Piglet's
Yeah, exactly.
fear,
Yeah, exactly.
Eeyore's depression, and
Yeah,
Rabbit's the mind.
totally.
You know,
They
it's
all
yeah,
represent stuff like that. It's true.
yeah,
So it's fascinating when you think about that, right? The human
yeah.
impulses um, that are determined by the endorphins and all the stuff that gets released within us, right? Uh, well, they kind of all reflect that. So
Yeah.
anyway, that has nothing to do with Plato
Well, I
in a
do
way,
believe
although
that
the system's built
later.
off of that.
Again, I could be wrong here, everybody, but I do remember somewhere reading that some of the later Greek philosophers believed that the gods were archetypes of personality.
Oh, that's very
Um,
possible. Yeah,
yeah,
I don't know
the,
that, but that's very
yeah.
possible. It's
So
not, I don't think
anyway,
it's
just
that. I don't think it's like
taking.
a hidden mystery to go. Yeah, they represent the worst parts of
Yeah,
humanity.
it's pretty obvious
Yeah,
that. And then there's a guy that into the wine guy who I can't remember his name. I can see him in my mind, the image of his goat little legs and holding a big glass of wine. Anyway,
that might be
doesn't matter. But
Dionysius. Actually, that might be
yeah,
Dionysius.
it could be.
I can't.
Yeah,
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. There's the god of partying.
yeah, that guy.
Right.
He
Um,
was popular.
So yeah, so anyway, so Platonic philosophy separates things into ideas and forms, basically, in a nutshell. And then Stoicism is a way of imposing practices upon those ideas. So
Mm.
the way to purify oneself that you might be uh the higher form of humanity is to remove all emotions, because that would be the material, right? That would be the forms, would be the emotions, that would be the dirty part of humanity. As long as you can remove those things, you can be more godlike, with that you're unfeeling and uncaring and unmoved by anything, right? The the term stoic means to be unmoved by anything, right?
It's funny because I looked up this quote by, it's just a famous quote by, Dio Diogenes? Diogenes?
Diogenes.
Sorry, and because Alexander the Great went to see him because he was very impressed with him, right? And, he was the Stoic, and he came to get a word of encouragement or understanding, and Diogenes says to him, "Could you move a little bit to the right? You're blocking my sun." That's and he was really impressed by that
Yeah.
because, here the emperor comes and he's like, "Could you just move a little bit?"
That's funny. I didn't know that one.
Yeah. Anyway,
There's
very
lots of
famous one.
there's lots of great stuff in the Stoic philosophers, right? Marcus Aurelius was a Stoic
Oh,
philosopher,
yeah.
the Roman general, right? I think actually, did he become Caesar at some point? He might have.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, I think
absolutely.
so. Yeah, yeah, that's right. So he wrote um I can't remember what the book is called, but it's Stoic philosophy. And the thing is, when you look at Stoic philosophy in the first, couple centuries AD, the conversation around practice and life in general is very similar to it's the Christian ethic and the Stoic ethic are very similar, right? They're
Interesting.
not you would read Marcus Aurelius and go, is this guy a Christian? Right, and there's certain things you'd
Interesting.
read that you would go, "Well, maybe
I
not," but it's very there's a lot of overlap there.
I have an article. Keep going. I'll just see if I can find it, but,
Yeah. Um, the so the conversation, or the question of how much did Platonism and then Stoicism influence the Desert Fathers? It's it or it If it did, then we need to not listen to them. I think that's the assumption. If it did, then we not need to not listen to the early church fathers, right? Um, the problem with the 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 problem with the characterization and the question is is this, and here I'll just say it this way: show me someone who wasn't influenced by Plato. Like, let's first start there. Okay, show me someone who wasn't influenced by Plato in the hundreds of years leading up to the coming of Christ and the hundreds of years afterwards, and you'll be really hard pressed to find someone who wasn't influenced
mm,
by Plato.
very true.
And the Old Testament was largely composed by the time Plato comes around, right? Like the last of the prophetic books. It depends on if you're in the Catholic or Orthodox tradition and have First and Second Maccabees and Tobit and Judith and all that in there, then maybe you've got a few intertestamental works, right? But your Old Testament is largely put together by the time Plato comes around. So you don't find references to Platonic philosophy in the Old Testament. Um, but in the New Testament, you find right off the bat with John 1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. This is riffing on classic Greek philosophical framework. Um,
Here's, in the 5th century anthology of Stobius, there's a list of 147 maxims attributed to 7 sages of Greece. And I'll
right.
obey the law, worship the gods, respect your parents, be overcome by justice, know what you've learned, perceive what you've heard, be yourself, intend to get married, think as immortal. If you're a stranger, act like one, control yourself, help your friends, exercise prudence, honor providence, cling to discipline, pursue honor, long for wisdom, praise the good, find fault with no one, praise virtue, practice what is just, be kind to your friends, watch out for your enemies. Jesus would be different there. Exercise nobility of character, shun evil, be impartial, guard what is yours. shun what belongs to others, listen to everyone, be silent, do a favor for a friend, nothing in excess, use time sparingly. Anyway, so yeah, you look at those and go, yeah, those, yeah, I could find a lot of those in scripture.
Right.
Absolutely. Be a seeker of wisdom, choose what is divine, shun murder. There's a good one. Test character, look down on no one, be jealous of no one, be on your guard, despise a slanderer. Yeah. I mean, there's
It
147 of these things, everybody. I'm just going to skip them.
yeah,
But just so you know, it's like, whoa, no
there's a
wonder
lot of
Paul was
overlap
like,
there. Yeah.
yeah, surprising, surprising.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's going back to like even Jesus went the golden rule, right? Which is quoted as like for some reason the golden rule has entered into cultural consciousness or our cultural conscience as the height of morality. Do unto others as you would have them do unto us, right? Um Murray's looking for something. We'll wait for him to get his headphones back in. There we go.
Sorry.
No,
Had to
that's
let a
all right.
cat in.
Yeah. So the golden rule, like thinking of the golden rule, right? The golden rule is entered into the Western conscience as the epitome of morality, right?
Yes.
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, right? And we look at that as, but Jesus, the thing is, that kind of framework for morality or ethical discourse existed long before Jesus, right? You could go back as far as Buddha and he would say something very similar, right?
Mm,
It's not Jesus was never trying to epitomize morality through the ethos of the golden rule. He was never going this is how you're supposed to live. His whole point is that's kind of the baseline,
mm,
but the greater framework for morality is to lay one's life down on behalf of others, right?
yes.
Now, treating do the one is self-focused, right? Do unto others so I'm going to treat other people in a kind, loving way because I want to be treated in a kind, loving way,
Yes.
right?
I would say the
So
Greek maxims seem, without reading all of them, seem to point that way.
exactly. It's not a framework that's unheard of in the ancient world.
Yeah.
And but when Jesus talks about loving the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, he talks about loving your neighbor as yourself. He talks about um, the greater love will no one have but than this, that a man lay his
Mm,
life down on behalf of another. Right? He's
yeah.
elevating the framework for morality beyond the golden rule.
Yes.
Okay. So, but my point in saying that is when he says do unto others as you would have, he's calling on the Greek conscience, right? He's speaking
Mm,
directly to the culture there. That is a cultural ethos that's not inherently Christian, but has permeated the ancient world. And he's bringing it right
well
into
said.
his teaching on what a kingdom person actually looks like in the context of his moral framework is yes, and there's a lot more to it, right? Laying one's life down is a lot is a higher call in terms of a moral framework than doing unto others as you would have them do unto you, right? One
Yes.
is selfless and one is self-interested, and one is much more difficult to accomplish than the other,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
even the Ten Commandments, you can find shades of that in Hammurabi's code for in the
Yes.
ancient world, right? So you're talking about a moral and ethical framework in by the time Jesus comes around that's not unheard of in the pagan cultures surrounding Christianity. And then John, of course, incorporating loaded Greek philosophical terms like the logos. Paul in Acts 17 quoting Greek philosophers about the nature of Zeus and then having that point on to point point to God the Father, right?
Yeah.
In Acts
To move
17,
them in
right?
that direction.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Gonna
moves them in
move them
that direction,
along.
right? So Paul is obviously very aware of like, okay, to quote something in such a loaded way with so much cultural context to
Yeah.
bring
Wow.
the Christian like he had to really understand the framework of Roman and Greek society in order to bring because he's in Greece at that point, he's in the Areopagus, I don't think that's in Rome. I'm pretty sure it was in Greece at that point. That's another one of those things that you can fact check me on because
Yeah.
I can't remember. Regardless, he's speaking directly to the culture. He's not speaking in. That's interesting. At the beginning of Acts 17, he goes into the temple and reasons with the people that uh, Christ is the Messiah,
Mm.
right? And then he goes into the Areopagus and reasons from the Greek texts and their philosophers that God is the Father who's given us Jesus the Son.
Wow.
So he's very um, culturally proficient and seemingly well read when he incorporates that into his um, his message. His talk with the philosophers at the Areopagus.
Wow.
And there's a few others in that I just can't. I think there's a few. I think there may be a few. Is it in Isaiah
Well,
that are quotes of Greek philosophers, potentially quotes where there's definitely either Isaiah was picking up on them or they picked up on Isaiah. So my point
oh,
is
interesting.
to try and say, well, Plato influenced this group of people, so we can't listen to them, is just to misunderstand the framework of society and culture
Well
in the
said.
in the
Yes.
early centuries of Christian history, because Plato influenced everybody. So if Paul wanted to have a conversation with in the Greek and Roman world, he was going to have to understand Greek and Roman culture, Greek philosophy, Roman philosophy, and he was going to have to be able to incorporate a Christian framework into that. And that's largely what you find following from because the apostolic fathers, right, first century, following from Paul and John and Matthew and the 12 apostles, the apostolic fathers are largely Jewish.
Yeah.
And it's not really until you get to I think Tertullian may have been the first kind of notable Greek philosopher that became Christian.
Really, what year are we talking there with
Now we're
Tertullian?
talking like, yeah,
150?
150 to 250, somewhere in there. He's
Wow.
early on, right?
Yeah.
Tertullian. So I think he was the first one. And Tertullian was also the one who coined the term Trinity at 160 AD to 240
Oh,
AD. Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
Hold on 1 second. I have to go to the bathroom.
Okay.
Sorry. I didn't turn
Pause.
the fireplace back on. I just turned it off. Now I'm cold, so
Okay.
I'm gonna die. I'm trying not to die. Did you come here to die? I came here yesterday. Finley, look, you're the wrong. You're in the wrong place. Look. There you little rock cat. Oh, fuck, right, guys? Yeah. Good boy. The problem is that when I get older and I don't have dogs, I'm so used to talking to inanimate objects. I'm gonna look like a fool.
Yeah, it's true. Um,
Say, sorry about that. That's
no,
two
that's fine.
bubblies and 2 cups of coffee.
That's fine.
It's way too much.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, I can pick up right where I was.
Good. That was a good
Yeah,
spot. I just thought there
yeah,
was a
that was,
thought
yeah.
right there.
So, Tertullian coined the term Trinity. He's one of the first ones to use the word
Okay.
Trinity.
And that's, I mean, a lot of people, even in not a lot of people, but there is a segment of Christianity who already says that's Greek philosophy getting into the church, and you can't find that word in the Bible. And I've heard that argument. So, which
Yeah.
is, we don't even need
Stupid.
to go there
It's
because it's
stupid.
stupid. So
It's
it's pretty
stupid.
clear. Galatians 4:6, he sent the spirit of his son into our heart, who
Yeah.
cries, Abba, Father. There's everybody.
It's
They're all
it's
there.
all it's all throughout scripture, right?
Yeah.
It's all there. Um and we're not that's not what we're not laying out a Trinitarian defense right
Yes.
now. So Tertullian, one of the first Greek philosophers turned Christian theologian, and that's early on, right? That's really early on.
That's really early on.
And so
Yeah.
the first few letters that you read in the post the apostles sound a lot like the apostles, right? You get
Yes.
the Didache, you get First and Second Clement of
Yeah.
Rome, right?
Who was
You've
a
got
disciple of
Irenaeus,
Peter, I think. Irenaeus.
yeah,
Yeah. Irenaeus.
probably, yeah. Irenaeus, right, against the heresies. You've got Ignatius of Antioch. So they're largely writing instruction, much like Paul, to clarify some theological misunderstandings and to
Yeah.
give pastoral care to the churches in the various different cities, right? It does really feel like I think it's Ignatius that writes to um, the Church of Corinth, and it feels like a continuation of Second Corinthians, right?
Oh,
We're
yeah.
still
Wow.
dealing with issues and trying to frame things and help people understand. So, and then it's Tertullian that really starts the Greek expansion of Christianity, right? I think all of the apostles were Jews, right? All of the church fathers were Jewish.
Yeah.
The apostolic fathers were Jewish, um, and and they're having this showdown essentially with Rome, right? Caesar is Lord, no, Jesus is Lord, right? That's kind of the framework of the first 100 years of Christian struggle is the
Mm.
persecution there. But then it's when Tertullian starts writing, and he's got a couple books that he writes where he's arguing against Greek philosophers because Christianity has now shown up on the scene as a kind of a mover and shaker in terms of a system of thought, right?
Really? By
So
150,
yeah, for
well-known
sure.
mover and
Yeah, for
shaker.
sure.
For sure.
Yeah, for
Wow.
sure. Yeah, well, because Judaism was so popular, right? It was one of the only religions that were allowed to practice um, the way that it was that they had latitude to practice their system of religion in Jerusalem and Israel, where lots of other because they were a conquered country by the Greek
Mm.
Empire and they were by the Roman Empire at that point, and they were given a lot of latitude. They were a favored to have a king, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
they
Well,
had,
the Romans originally were invited in to help protect them against during the Maccabees, right
yeah,
after the
that's right. Yeah,
Maccabees.
that's
Hey,
right.
help protect us against
Yeah.
the Greek Empire of the Seleucids, I
So
think.
Christianity
Anyway,
originally, of course, is an offshoot off of Judaism and
and that's
starts
how
and
it would have been thought of. Hey,
yeah,
during that time, this is
yeah.
kind of a yeah.
There's so yeah, so you get into Tertullian and some of the Latin fathers who are starting to characterize and respond to attacks on Christianity from
Right.
a Greek or Roman perspective, right? So they're now speaking as Greek philosophers turned theologians into the Greek culture. Okay.
Ah, yes, well
Right.
said.
Same with Origen. His defense against Celsus, where
Mm.
Celsus starts calling out how strange Christianity is, and Origen responds to the only thing we don't have Celsus's original book. We only have Origen's quotes of Celsus.
Oh, got
Okay.
it. Yeah,
So I think Tertullian is it against Praxis or Praxis, a Greek philosopher.
sounds
So
familiar.
there's some arguing going back and forth, right? And so what this does is this starts to, hey, Christianity, the Platonic influence isn't so much a Platonic influence as it is a number of people who were raised in a Greek philosophical tradition now speaking
Mm.
to the Greek philosophical tradition using Greek terms to defend Christianity. Okay, so now
Now, where,
you've
if you don't mind me asking, where's
yeah.
Polycarp in all of this?
So
Because
Polycarp,
he's a rhetorician philosopher himself at first, isn't he?
he is yeah. So Polycarp's dead by now.
Oh yeah, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So Polycarp
But he
is
is like one of these original guys. Was a Greek
yeah, but we
philosopher.
don't like Poly all I think the only thing we have that's written it was the martyrdom of Polycarp. There's not a bunch of letters by
Oh,
Polycarp or
got it.
anything, right?
Anyway,
So
maybe I'll just, since I brought it up, we'll move on because
yeah, he's called a
he is a
prophet. He's called a
great
bishop. He's called an
he's got a
apostle.
great conversion story.
Yeah, he
He's walking
does.
in the ocean along. This old guy comes up to him and basically starts to tell him about Jesus, and they have this debate when he's thinking in his rhetorical Greek philosophical thinking, and this guy just takes him apart. This old guy, and he
Right.
converts. So if anybody you want to experience this in a conversion experience, that's quite fun to read. Read
Yeah.
Polycarp's conversion experience. That will sum this up in a very easily digestible way.
Right.
Anyway,
Right. Yeah. So, and Polycarp, was Polycarp Greek? He must have
I
been.
just remember he was a rhetorician, and that was his job. And I mean, so he was a philosopher at some level and some paid level,
Right.
professional. And this old guy just takes him to town, rips down his theology on one walk on the beach, and it's quite
Right.
brilliant. I'll have to just read it again, but it's always impressed me.
Yeah, he is. He does that. There is. I was just googling it. There are a couple letters by him that we have. So he died in the about 155. Um, so by the time, so Tertullian's not even born, or he's just barely a kid at the time the Polycarp
Got it.
passes away. So that's really the influx of. So to say, oh, Platonism or then Neoplatonism, which was characterized by the Greek philosopher Plotinus, which incorporates more mystical elements.
What year are
And
we
that
talking there? Roughly.
Plotinus was first, second century, I
Got
believe.
it. Okay.
Um, so we might as well just look it up. He was, third century, second, third century. So Plotinus, kind of furthers the Platonic philosophy in terms of the Greek and the terms of the Roman Empire. But the conversation has already started to heavily lean towards a Greek audience in terms of Christianity, because Christianity's main expansion is throughout the Roman Empire, right? The Roman Empire set the stage for Christianity really to go all throughout the known world, because
Yes.
you finally had systems of road. Like if you think about the perfect time and place, it would have been exactly when Jesus came for this new way of thought and belief
To explode throughout the world.
throughout the known world.
Yeah.
Because before that, travel was not safe. The ability to get the interconnectedness between regions wasn't developed.
Common culture and language. That's right.
Culture and
Everyone's
language
speaking.
was so disparate and separate. But now you've got an empire that's conquered the known world, that has the predominant language of Latin and Greece or Greek have permeated everywhere, right? And the roads are protected and people can travel, all that stuff, right? So
Amazing.
it sets the stage for the
I
expansion.
believe that Roman Empire, if I remember the numbers right, ruled over 1/3 of mankind at that time. This
for sure.
amazing,
Yeah,
right?
for sure. And with that said, the Jesus is the one who was the catalyst for the Christian message to go to the pagans, to the Roman world, right? He told them to go.
That's right.
Right? The
That's
apostles
right.
were
Go
really
to the
pretty
ends
happy.
of the earth.
Yeah, go to the ends of the earth,
Yeah.
right? He was the one who said go. So my point in saying that is, in a sense, Jesus didn't entrust the development of early theology to Jewish witnesses solely. He entrusted the development of Christian theology to the Greeks and the Romans.
Wow. Think about that as a statement.
He did.
Somebody out there is like kicking their Bible across the room right now.
No, there are none of the Jewish writers are writing defenses of theology. That's just not the way that the Jewish writers thought. They're not writing defenses of theology to the known world and to other cultures. The Greeks are.
Sure.
The Roman philosophers and the Greek philosophers that become Christian are. Right? These are the ones
that's what they do. They argue publicly.
They systematize the thought. and they codify and they find language to express it that says, how do we express this? And this is where you get creeds a are not a result of Jewish thought. They're a result of Greek thought. Now you do have, of course, the creedal formulas in scripture that Paul seems to codify, but Paul was a Roman citizen, right? He was heavily influenced by the Greek culture. Not to say he wasn't,
Interesting.
he was definitely
Fascinating.
Jewish,
Yeah, yeah.
but you can't say Plato influenced this particular subset of people, so we can't listen to him, because Plato influenced everybody. And then that subset of people, the Christians, spoke into Platonic philosophy and that culture in order to show people what Christian theology was like. And they used terms and structures that were heavily Platonic, because they go, well,
I think, as we're talking about this argument, as far as summing it up in a way that people might get, because we're trying to make the case here that everybody thought platonically. It was the air
yeah,
you breathe.
it
It
was.
would be
Yeah.
like Homer Simpson saying, "English, who needs that? I'm never going to England."
Yeah,
Right?
that's
It's
right.
like
Yes, that's right.
we're so influenced by English law, English culture, Magna Carta, democracy through the
Yeah.
English. We don't even know it,
Yeah.
but we're never going to England.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
but it's just in the air we breathe. I mean,
It's
the
in the
same
air we
way
breathe.
in
Yeah.
Plato and the Greek philosophers in Jesus's time in the Roman world, it would have been the same thing.
Yeah. So
That's a.
so that's
I'm just hoping your argument
you
was
yeah, you
as
have to
your
set that stage
side
before
chick.
you have any conversation about, well, the early church fathers were Platonic, or the desert fathers were Platonic, or the Catholic Church is influenced by Platonic law. You have to set the stage for just how much the surrounding culture, that was being won over by the Christian witness. The Christians were speaking that, like today, we speak the language of the people we want to reach, because we use metaphors,
Well
and we use
said.
arguments, and we structure things in a way that addresses the Western mind. Because why? Because we're trying to talk to people in the West, right? So you listen
Yeah,
to a theological debate between a Christian and an atheist. It's a structured debate, right? You've got an opening point. They both sides present an opening salvo, and then there's a cross examination that happens, right? You got to
yeah,
ask questions of this guy. There's a cross examination that happens. You got to ask questions of this guy. There's an open dialogue, and then there's Q&A time. It's a framework for a debate. That's how Christian theology is expounded on YouTube today, because
yeah,
is the framework. The framework's Western, right? The framework is most definitely not biblical, right? To do that in that, like, it's just not even thought of there. But we use that framework in order to win the mind and hearts of people through clarifying what Christian theology is all about, right?
yeah,
So there's nothing wrong with using that framework to try and speak into it, and then to use the kind of terminologies that an atheist or an agnostic would use to speak into it, right? To use, if you started criticizing a what some whoever you want to take, that's a uh, uh what's the guy's name I'm thinking of? He's a English guy, old, round. He's awesome. I can't think of his name
oh,
right
and to your
now.
right, sorry.
Oh, NT Wright. NT
He's
Wright would be one of them, right? if
yeah,
if you criticize it, let's say NT Wright, that's not who I was thinking of. I just can't think of the I can see his face right now, but
Christian guy.
yeah.
Okay, I didn't know whose team you were talking about here.
He's a Christian guy, yeah. But because they would reference secular humanism in their debate cycles, right?
Yeah,
And then you go, and then you go 100 years later, or 1,000 years later, you go, well, you can't listen to N.T. Wright because he talked about secular humanism, right?
uh,
It's like, well, that's stupid, right? Because he only talked about secular humanism to speak to the secular humanists, and then he used their framework to speak into their framework. So that's not a knock against the early church fathers, or the desert fathers for that matter. So that's the bigger answer to the question: did Plato influence them? Yes, he influenced everybody, but they
well said.
used they used the framework in order to speak into the culture, were some of them more influenced than others? Absolutely. And
Mm.
usually those guys were pretty well, like Origen was called a heretic
Yes.
and thought of as a heretic for hundreds of years. And so there was a lot of arguments over those kind of things, right? Irenaeus wrote against heresies, where he wrote within the framework of a Christian theology, addressing all of the Gnostic heresies that were born from Platonic philosophy. So everything he spoke was about that. And then he characterized the nature of God, the nature of Jesus, all of that stuff through the context of arguing against pagan philosophies that were influenced by Gnostic heresies.
Which
So,
would be John, even in the book of John, he's doing that, right?
yeah,
In
for
the
sure.
why
Yeah,
he's
for
saying
sure.
in the beginning was the word
Yeah.
with, coming in the flesh, and because,
Yeah.
interesting.
So the are there so then the question, so I think, addressing all that, then flowing down to the particular question of, are the Desert Fathers influenced by Stoicism and Platonic philosophy? Now, for one, and I've said this so many times, it annoys me when people do it, um, that the Desert Fathers as a thought system are not monolithic. Okay.
Mm,
Neither are the early church fathers. They're not monolithic. There was at least three major centers of study, two in particular, Antioch and
mm,
Alexandria, and Rome would have been another one. And each one had different emphasis. This is why they argued, right? Each one, they either spoke Greek or Latin predominantly, argued
mm,
from that place. Those languages, um, language helps to determine what your culture is all about and influences your culture. So when it comes to like the filioque, right?
yes.
Did the spirit proceed from the Father or from the Son and the Father? Right. Those are language and semantics between Greek and
Which
Latin. That
everyone is
major argument in the early
major
church, right?
argument split. One of the reasons
Yeah.
church split into two. One
Yeah.
one one of, maybe not the main one, but
One
it's
of,
one
yeah,
of,
one of the big
and
arguments
it's
then.
loss of the language.
And it's a language thing, right? So the early church fathers are not monolithic, and the desert fathers for sure aren't monolithic, because there were different centers of study and different ways of thinking and different influences. So in the desert fathers, right, you can find um threads of stoic thought that inform ascetic practice,
Mm,
right? Like I've got a quote here where Abba Daniel, and this is in the sayings of the Desert Fathers. He said, insofar as the body flourishes, so the soul declines, and insofar as the body declines, so the soul flourishes.
that sounds very
Right?
stoic, doesn't it?
It sounds pretty stoic, right? Is does that mean it's inherently wrong because it sounds like another philosophical system? Well, so does in the beginning was the word. Sounds like another
Mm,
philosophical system, right? So does Paul's conversation in the Areopagus in Acts 17. Sounds like another culture. That doesn't make it wrong, right? Criticize the idea itself. Don't just criticize where it came from. So
ooh, well said.
is Daniel right that when you gorge yourself, that it seems like the higher capability of humanity to reach out to God is stifled? I think we would all agree that that's probably the case. If you
Yes.
go and have a lot of sex and you get drunk all the time and you overeat and everything, you're probably not going to know. You're probably going to be hindered in your capacity to know God, right? Like the concept is sound, but it sounds quite stoic, right?
Yeah.
So to say the Desert Fathers is a monolith and say though they are all influenced by Stoic philosophy is a complete fabrication, because one, you have like Anthony the Great and his conversation with the monks in Egypt, right? Northern Egypt, where they were centralized, um and or that's where Evagrius was, right? That's where Ephraim the Syrian was.
Mm,
And Evagrius probably has more language that sounds like Neoplatonism than Basil the Great, who's in Turkey, right? He started all the monasteries in Turkey. So those guys have entirely different ways of thinking and practicing and characterizing what they're saying, right? So that doesn't mean that they are anti-Christian or unchristian. Well, because the attack really ends up being they're just Greek. They're not actually Christian,
yes, that would be
right?
the attack.
And because they believe that the body is evil and the soul is the height of human expression. And I would criticize that idea that the body's evil, but I don't think a lot of them think that, right? Because
No,
I think
I don't think so.
the framework for spiritual practices, ascetic practices, and there are, like, we can criticize how hyper some of those practices become, right? Excessive some of those practices. And they did also, they criticize, like Cassian goes, don't let anybody go out to the desert and fast all the time because they're gluttonous in their fasting. So it's just as
Oh, what a
bad.
statement.
He goes, so you should fast a little every day. And every time you eat a meal, leave that meal hungry, right? So that's not stoic at all, right?
Yeah.
But his point is your body is important, and Christianity is an embodied religion. It's an embodied philosophy. It's an embodied way of thinking.
Mm,
And all of them thought of themselves not as escaping the reality of the earth, but as embodying the presence of God on the earth. I think you could monolith that, because I think that is, whether or not they had threads of a Greek thought that inform some of their practices, that's every person that ever lived from the time of Plato on. Okay. Yeah. In the West anyway.
yeah, yeah,
And so good luck finding someone that's safe then, right?
yeah.
You're never going to find it, right? But let's look at the actual ideas presented, criticize the ideas, and go, are they, do can we find them in scripture, right? Like we were talking earlier before we started recording about the tripartite nature of the soul,
Yes.
where in our charismatic evangelical Pentecostal background, we would have been taught that the soul was made up of three parts: the mind, the will, and the emotions, right? That's, you can trace that easily. You can trace that back to Watchman Nee, if not earlier, right? So we can go back and look at those things. And in the Orthodox Church, and in the Desert Fathers, right? The Orthodox Church and the Catholic Church would have the same kind of teaching, is the soul is separated into three parts: the insensitive part, the
Yeah.
appetitive part, and the intelligent part, right? And that's the mind. That's essentially the mind, will, and emotions. Is the split,
Got
the
it.
yeah, the insensitive parts, the emotions; the appetitive parts, the will; and the intelligent part is the mind. And then the Desert Fathers would have tied certain practices into the purifying of those particular parts of the person,
Yes.
right? That's, they would say,
Which
fasting.
where you could say some, modern forms of Christianity would say, well, that right there is why we connect Plato and the Stoics to the Desert Fathers, because they're both dealing with purging the passions, because the body's evil. And then that's where right there, that little statement on the end is
Yeah.
where no, let's
They're
back
not
the
saying
train
the
up.
body. Your hands are so dirty. It's so funny on the camera.
I know, like the body's dirty.
Yeah.
Everybody, look at that.
That's a
Ah!
perfect description. Yeah. Yeah.
I was
That's right.
insulating
That's
everyone.
right.
My hands are like totally black, not all,
Yeah.
like
That's
they're
right.
just so dirty. Look at them.
Yeah.
So it's a good. We're doing the right episode.
Yeah. The idea that humankind is made in the image of God is so profoundly influential in every form of Christianity.
Yes.
And not it is absent in Greek philosophy and Roman
Yes.
philosophy and in Stoicism, right? That the image of God in the heart of man informs everything about Christian practice, and that's true across the board. So
What is that quote? I mean, sorry to hit you with a quote that off the top. I just believe you have everything memorized. So it wasn't. Who was it that said, "If Jesus didn't take it on, it cannot be redeemed"? It's something like that, right?
It's the Gregories, Gregory Nazianzus, Gregory of
Uh,
Nyssa. Yeah.
can you quote
Uh,
that a little
um,
better than I did? You might not get it completely, but
everything Christ assumed, he healed. Everything
there
he
you
did
go.
not assume, he did not heal. That's it's close
Yes.
enough to the exact quote. Yeah. And it was
So
that
in other
was
words, he had to come into a body.
yeah,
If he was going to heal mankind at all, he
yeah,
took it all upon himself because he loves the body. He loves our nature, our body,
yeah.
soul, spirit, if we want to go that way.
And that's the entire
So
argument. I mean, that's the argument with in a way flowing from Arianism, which Anthony the Great, Anthony the Great goes, "Oh, these guys are struggling. Just have them read Athanasius." right? They're so concerned with the sanctity of the body. That's the whole point of the ascetic practices, is preserving the sanctity of the body as a holy place for the Father to dwell, for God to dwell in his creation. It said of Macarius the Great, Macarius became a god on earth because he covered the faults of others as though he did not see them. Right?
Wow.
That's an embodied and fleshed
Mm.
image of God archetype right there in the Desert Fathers. And this is a guy that's fasting all the time. He's in the wilderness,
Yeah.
right? His whole purpose is not to prepare the soul to depart into an ethereal place, right? But this is why they're going, um, after Anthony dies, he keeps visiting him. It's an entire framework that is not, he's now escaped, and he's in the realm of ideas that's separate from
Mm.
the material plane. No, actually, he keeps visiting him, right? He's still enfleshed. He's not unenfleshed because he died. He's still part of creation, coming to them and appearing and giving them instruction. Even Augustine talks about this stuff when he goes, the departed brothers that died, they came back in dreams and visions to people and told them various things that were to come. This is
Oh, there's a big topic.
right. This is another one, right? They're still enfleshed. They're not disembodied spirits living in eternal. That's not until way later that we get that kind of thought process, right? So,
And that's why everybody that that we get buried and our bodies, right, are blessed, and because we'll be raised what? Bodily. We're going to be raised
yeah,
bodily because the
totally,
body is
totally,
holy and sanctified. And see, I think here's where the part of the problem is when people beat up on the Desert Fathers. Well, they fasted and they prayed and they denied themselves. That shows that they hate the body. And
right,
that's why they're Platonic.
right,
When in fact, what they're trying to do is purify the body. As much as an evangelical would go, too much drinking, too much fasting, staying up all night and watching movies every day is not good for you,
yeah. We
right?
may be able to
We need to purify
yeah,
that.
maybe we could characterize them as being over religious and zealous,
Yes.
right? But that's not fair to say they're Platonic, because they don't incorporate all the elements of Platonic philosophy. Their system of thought and their outcome are very, very different, right?
Which I think we should pick up next week.
Yeah,
Next one, because that's how are they different? Like,
yeah,
how did they develop differently? Why do we
yeah,
confuse this?
yeah.
And
Outcomes matter, right?
outcomes matter.
Or
Yeah,
that, because it's where you're aiming. Let me just say that, let me just say this part, because I left it
absolutely.
hanging, and then we'll call this to a close. We've been going for a while now. That
It's
the
such a great topic.
that insensitive appetitive intelligent, going right back to that, right? And then the mirror image of that in the contemporary teachings of spirit, soul, and body, and the soul is the mind, will, and the emotions, and we're tripartite beings, and each one of each are the being of the soul, or the soul the is three parts, and it's mind, will, and emotion. And Watchman Nee tracks that all the way back to scripture, right?
Yeah, yep,
In the
for sure.
spiritual man, he lays out lists and lists and lists and lists of, this is how the soul's described. And like it or not, you may disagree with him, but he's firmly anchoring this in scripture. Well, that concept is Platonic philosophy. That it is through and through Platonic philosophy. The term insensitive, appetitive, and rational, or intelligent, those are the terms that Plato uses to describe the soul. So the
Wow.
mind, will, and the motion that Watchman Nee uses to describe the soul are just transliterations of those things, right? So, and then, but Watchman Nee goes, here it all is in scripture. So where was it first? Was it in Plato?
Oh, good thought.
Right? Was it in scripture? Right? Is it just a way of characterizing the makeup of a person that helps us understand how to rightly divide scripture? Right? Is it a from heaven, God said, you will have an intelligent, you will have an incisive, and you will have an appetitive aspect? I don't know how to answer that. I just go, well, it wasn't originally in Plato. So Plato may have characterized it that way, but it's not original to him, because it's there in the Old Testament before he,
Yeah, who knows? Maybe he
right?
got it from there. You never
Maybe
know,
he got it
right?
from there, right? Maybe is it just a system we
We
put on scripture to try and help us read it? It's just not that important to me to go, oh, there's Plato's thought right there. Well, there's Watchman Nee's thought right there. There's the Old Testament thought right
You
there.
know, I think where it
So
gets into where, where if we break down into a real practical point, and we'll have to come back to this,
yeah,
is where if we get down to the thought where Paul says, I beat my body, right? Or he
yeah,
says, I work out my salvation in fear and trembling. That's putting a human effort into, dealing with these things, the incisive, the rational, and the appetitive. And
right,
and if we go, well, no, that's really, if we'll have to break this down to an kind of an evangelical model versus a desert father model, saying, well, how
right,
much work needs to be put into this? I mean, if we
right,
look at a monist, no, you need to go out in the wilderness and have some significant silence to heal your soul. Otherwise, you shouldn't be sent to men. Well,
right,
in our Western culture, is no, you just train the mind, learn doctrine, and now you're ready to go. Right? Like
right,
we
right.
really see the two camps right there.
Yeah,
Right.
that's right.
And so, but yeah,
Right.
let's come back to that. So,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so if you're going to remove um every description that is mirrored in other cultures and other texts, ancient texts, then you're going to remove a lot of the Bible also, right?
yeah,
So let's not play that game. Let's look at the early church fathers and go, well, what did this one teach? What did this one teach? And then we can criticize the particular idea, but you
brilliant.
have
Well
to
said.
read it within the context and the
Oops.
framework that they're pulling from, the
Oop.
people they're speaking to, and what they're trying to accomplish. And rather than just going, well, they were all influenced by Stoic philosophy, so that means we shouldn't
And then
listen
just
to them.
flush it, which is what my culture did, at least
Yeah,
back in
it's
the
just
day.
not
So,
we could do the same today when have started to really see the failures of the reformed position.
yeah.
And we could just go, okay, well, everything touched by Calvin or Luther, that's evil. We don't want to, you could, I mean, Luther's an easy one to do it. Just look at how he treated the Jews.
Oh,
He was horribly
yeah.
anti-Semitic, right? So we
Yeah,
go,
at the Nuremberg trial, they were quoting Luther to prove their
yeah,
position, which is
exactly.
horrible.
So you're going, let's just not play that game because it's not gonna help us come to some kind of you know good good conversation around practice, theology, philosophy, living the way of Jesus and embodying who he is, and seeing the world transform to a better place. Like, good luck if you're just going to go, don't listen to them because they're this, don't listen to this because this, don't listen to them because they're this. It's just not helpful. I just don't find it helpful. There's
Yeah,
lots more
well,
we can talk about on the
well,
topic for
yeah,
sure.
I'm looking forward to kicking this ball around. So there we go.
Yeah, there we go. Well, everybody, thanks for tuning in to listening to, I guess it was me rant and
No, it's great.
Murray goading
I'm
my
learning a
ranting
lot
on.
too. Yeah, I am goading you a little bit.
Yeah,
I must
you want to
admit.
talk to about this is my dad, actually.
Oh, we might
My
have to have him come on and interview
my
him.
dad is the guy to talk about this.
Oh, we
So,
should do that. I would
yeah,
really enjoy that.
yeah. Well, I will see about that. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Well, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. We hope this was encouraging or at least clarifying to you with some of the things that you've heard people say. And if anything, if you leave a little more confused but intrigued, that's okay also.
Yeah, ask questions.
Yeah,
We'll
ask
break it down
questions.
and
That's right.
read Polycarp's testimony of how he got saved. That'll help you.
That'll
It'll
help you.
it'll
There you go. There
personalize
you
it
go.
into a story.
That's
I'll go
right.
read it too. It's been a while.
That's right. Oh, well, God bless, and we'll see you guys next week.